My mother-in-law has been rearranging my house for 2 years. I have shared apartments with 4 different people over the years and never once had a conflict about space. I am easygoing. I am reasonable. I am also currently sitting in my own living room, looking at a throw pillow that I have never seen before in my life and trying to figure out when it got here. My mother-in-law, Carol, lives about 40 minutes away. She comes over every other weekend to see my wife, Dana, and our 2 kids. She's fine. She's not a monster. She makes good soup, she's decent with the kids, and she only gives unsolicited parenting advice maybe 60% of the time, which I understand is actually below average for mothers-in-law, so I've been told to consider myself lucky. The rearranging started small. I came home from work one day about 2 years ago, and the fruit bowl had moved from the left side of the kitchen counter to the right. I thought Dana had moved it. Dana thought I'd moved it. Neither of us had moved it. Carol had been over that day. I noted this and said nothing because it's a fruit bowl and I'm not insane. Then the mug hooks appeared. I came downstairs one Saturday morning and there was a set of wooden mug hooks installed on the kitchen wall, screwed into the wall with screws. I asked Dana when we'd decided to get mug hooks. She said her mom had brought them as a gift and put them up while Dana was bathing the kids. I stared at the holes in my wall that now had hooks in them and I said okay, because again, reasonable person, easygoing, not territorial, but then it kept going. At the bathroom, hand towels changed color. The bookshelf in the hallway got reorganized by height instead of the system I had, which was by subject. I know how that sounds, but I had a system. The system was mine. Now my entire philosophy section is sandwiched between a travel guide to Portugal and a novel Dana read in 2019, because they are all roughly the same height, and Carol finds that visually satisfying. About 14 months in, I started keeping a mental list. The coat hooks by the front door got moved to the other side, which means every single morning I reach to my right out of muscle memory and grab nothing. The kids' art on the fridge got replaced with a chalkboard meal planner Carol bought at a home goods store. The kids were not consulted on this. They noticed immediately. My 7-year-old said, "Where is my rainbow horse painting?" And I didn't have a good answer. I brought it up to Dana calmly, very calmly. I said, "Hey, I've noticed your mom makes a lot of changes to the house when she visits, and I'd like it to stop." Dana said her mom was just being helpful and meant well. I said I believe that completely, and I'd still like it to stop. Dana said I was being sensitive. I said I'm going to start rearranging things at Carol's house and see how that lands. Dana said that's petty. I said the word petty hasn't stopped being true just because I'm the one saying it. Nothing changed. 2 months ago, Carol came over while I was at my work conference for 3 days. I came home Sunday night. The living room furniture had been rearranged. The couch was against a different wall. The armchair was angled differently. The TV was fine, but the console underneath it had been reorganized, and I could not find the controller for 4 days. I know it sounds minor when I write it out, but I want you to understand I walked into my own house and did not recognize my own living room. I stood in the doorway for a full 10 seconds, just recalibrating. Dana said it opened up the space. I said I liked the space the way it was. Carol had told Dana the old layout blocked the natural light. I said we had lived in that layout for 3 years and the light had always come through fine. Dana said maybe we'd just gotten used to it. I went to bed. Here is where I made my decision. Carol's birthday was 3 weeks ago. We went to her house for dinner. Nice house, very organized. Carol has strong opinions about where things live and everything is exactly where she wants it. I arrived, hugged her, wished her happy birthday, and then over the course of the evening, I started making very small adjustments. I moved the decorative tray on her coffee table about 8 inches to the left. I turned one of her framed photos on the mantel just slightly so it faced fractionally away from center. I took the hand soap from the right side of her bathroom sink and put it on the left. Nothing dramatic, nothing she could really complain about, just enough to feel it. On the drive home, Dana asked if I'd moved things around at her mom's house. I said I'd made a few small adjustments because the space felt like it could breathe more. Dana stared at me. I kept my eyes on the road. She said her mom had noticed. I said how funny that noticing feels. Carol has not rearranged anything in our house since. And the throw pillow I didn't recognize turned out to be Dana's, bought 2 weeks ago, which I would have known if I hadn't been so primed to assume Carol was responsible. And honestly, that's a fair criticism of where my head was at, but the furniture is still where I put it. I woke up the next morning feeling a strange mix of triumph and guilt. The house felt like mine again, or at least the boundaries felt like they'd been reinforced with the invisible electric fence. For a week, things were quiet. No new candles appeared on the mantel. No spices were alphabetized. The following Sunday, however, was Carol's scheduled visit. Usually, when the doorbell rings at 2 p.m., I feel a small knot of tension in my stomach. It's the sound of an impending audit. I opened the door, and there she was, holding a Tupperware container of her famous lentil soup and wearing a smile that looked just a little tighter than usual. "Hi, Mark," she said, stepping inside. She didn't head straight for the kitchen like she normally does. Instead, she stood in the foyer and did a slow 360-degree sweep of the room. Her eyes lingered on the coat hooks, the ones I'd moved back to their original position the day after the birthday dinner. She didn't say a word. She just shifted the soup to her other arm and walked into the kitchen. Dana came down the stairs, looking between us like she was waiting for a bomb to go off. "Hey, Mom, you're early. Traffic was light," Carol said. She set the soup on the counter, specifically on the left side where the fruit bowl used to be. "I thought we could just have a nice, quiet afternoon. I ain't no fussing." The afternoon was indeed quiet, eerily quiet. Carol sat on the couch I had dragged back across the carpet by myself at midnight, and she sat perfectly still. Normally, Carol is a hum of activity. She's the person who gets up to, "Just rinse this real quick while you're still eating." She's the one who notices a smudge on the window and attacks it with a stray napkin. But today, she was a statue. She looked at the bookshelf. I saw her eyes tracking the heights of the spines. I had spent 4 hours the previous Tuesday putting them back into their subject-based categories. I could see her jaw tighten when she spotted the Republic next to a thick biography of Marcus Aurelius. They were wildly different sizes. To her, it probably looked like a jagged tooth. "Mark," she said, her voice smooth as glass, I noticed you're interested in philosophy again." "Always have been, Carol," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "It's good to have things where you can find them." She nodded slowly. "Of course, efficiency is important, though sometimes a little aesthetic harmony can soothe the mind, don't you think?" "I find knowing exactly where my keys are very soothing," I replied. Dana cleared her throat loudly from the armchair. "So, the soup smells great, Mom. Should I get the bowls?" "Actually," Carol said, standing up, "I forgot the crusty bread in the car. Mark, would you mind?" I knew it was a setup. She wanted me out of the room. But I'm a reasonable guy, remember? I went to the car, I took my time, and I breathed in the cool air and told myself that a few minutes of her being alone in the kitchen wouldn't result in a total renovation. When I came back in, I walked straight to the kitchen. The soup was in a pot on the stove. Carol was standing by the sink, drying her hands. Everything looked normal. I relaxed. Then I saw the drawer. The junk drawer in our kitchen is a universal constant. It contains batteries of questionable charge, rubber bands, a hex key from a desk we sold in 2021, and 3 different types of tape. It was closed, but there was a tiny sliver of blue plastic sticking out of the seam. I walked over and pulled it open. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. Every single item had been placed into small, clear plastic bins. The batteries were lined up by size. The rubber bands were looped around a designated peg, and the hex keys were taped together. It must have taken her less than 5 minutes. The speed was professional. It was a message. "I noticed it was a bit cluttered," Carol said from behind me. "Hard to find a flashlight in an emergency, I'd imagine." I looked at the drawer. Then I looked at her. Dana was standing in the doorway, her face pale. She knew the truce had been broken. "It's very organized, Carol," I said. My voice was calm, but my heart was hammering. "Thank you." I didn't move the items back. Not that day. I realized that if I fought her on the junk drawer, I was the crazy one. Who fights over a junk drawer being too clean? It was the perfect move. She'd found the one area of the house I didn't have an emotional attachment to and conquered it. Over the next month, the helpful occupation, as I started calling it in my head, entered a new phase. It wasn't about the big furniture anymore. It was about the invisible. I'd open the pantry to find the labels of the canned goods all facing forward. I'd go to the laundry room and find the detergent pods had been moved from their bag into a decorative glass jar that looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine. The psychological toll was real. I started second-guessing my own memory. Did I put the milk on the middle shelf, or did Carol? I felt like a guest in a very high-end Airbnb. It was pristine, it was functional, and it felt absolutely nothing like home. The breaking point didn't happen over a rug or a vase. It happened over the rainbow horse. My daughter, Maya, came home from school with a new masterpiece. It was a chaotic explosion of glitter and purple paint. We have a rule. New art goes on the fridge for at least a week. I watched her proudly magnet it to the door. That Saturday, Carol came over. I went to the garage to pull the lawnmower out, and when I came back in 10 minutes later to get a glass of water, the horse was gone. In its place was a sleek, minimalist magnetic calendar with soccer practice and Dr. Apt written in perfect, erasable script. "Where's the painting, Carol?" I asked. I didn't do the calm voice this time. She didn't even look up from the carrots she was peeling. "It was getting a bit curled at the edges, Mark. It looked a little messy. I put it in her memory box in the playroom. It's much safer there." "The fridge is for the kids," I said. My pulse was thumping in my ears. It's not for the aesthetic. It's for a 7-year-old who wants to see her work when she eats her cereal. I just think the kitchen is the heart of the home," Carol said, finally looking at me. "It should be a place of order. It helps the children feel secure. You know what helps them feel secure? Knowing their dad isn't going to let their grandma hide their stuff because it doesn't match the decor." Dana walked in then, sensing the shift in pressure. "What's going on?" "Your mother moved Maya's painting because it was messy," I said. Dana sighed, that long, tired sound she makes when she's caught between the two people she loves most. "Mom, we talked about this. Mark likes the fridge messy." "It's not about me liking it messy," I shouted. "It's about it being our fridge." Carol stood up, her face flushing a deep, mottled red. She didn't yell. She never yells. She just set the peeler down with a precise clack. I see. Well, if my help is so deeply resented, perhaps I should just stay in my disordered home where I'm not such a burden. She grabbed her coat. Dana followed her out to the driveway, pleading, apologizing for things she hadn't even done. I stayed in the kitchen. I took the magnetic calendar off the fridge and threw it into the pantry. I went to the playroom, found the horse painting, and put it back on the fridge with 4 magnets instead of 1. Dana came back inside 20 minutes later. She didn't look at me. She went straight to the kettle and started making tea. "She's crying, Mark," Dana said quietly. "I'm sorry she's upset," I said. "Truly. But Dana, look at me. Look at this room. Is this our house? Or is it a showroom for Carol's vision of what a good family looks like?" Dana looked around. Her eyes landed on the mug hooks Carol had installed a year ago. She walked over to them, touched one of the wooden pegs, and then did something I didn't expect. She pulled hard. The screw groaned, but stayed in. She grabbed a screwdriver from the newly organized junk drawer and started unscrewing them. "What are you doing?" I asked. "I hate these hooks," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I've hated them since the day she put them up. They're ugly. They're in the way. But I didn't want to hurt her feelings because she does so much for us." She dropped the hooks onto the counter. "But you're right. It's been 2 years of me trying to keep her happy and you trying to be easygoing. And meanwhile, I can't even find my own favorite mug because it's visually distracting on the counter." We spent the next hour together. It wasn't a fight. It was an exorcism. We moved the couch back. We put the hand towels away and brought out the old mismatched ones that actually absorbed water. We moved the books back to their subject-based chaos. It felt like we were reclaiming territory after a long, polite war. The next time Carol came over, 2 weeks later, she walked into a house that was decidedly not visually satisfying. There were shoes by the door. The fridge was covered in glittery paper. The mug hooks were gone, leaving 4 small, raw holes in the drywall that I hadn't bothered to patch yet. She stood in the foyer. She looked at the holes in the wall. And she looked at the rainbow horse. She looked at the philosophy book sitting crookedly on the shelf. She didn't say a word. She didn't move the fruit bowl. She sat on the couch that was back in its natural light-blocking position, and she drank her tea. She's still Carol. She still tries to tell us how to sleep train the kids, and she still makes comments about how much easier our lives would be if we just bought a different brand of vacuum. But she doesn't touch the furniture. Sometimes I'll catch her staring at a crooked picture frame or a stray toy on the rug. I see her fingers twitch. I see the primal urge to fix it rising up in her. But then she looks at me, and she remembers the hand soap on the left side of her sink. She remembers that I am a reasonable man, an easygoing man, but a man who knows exactly where his things belong. I still haven't patched those holes in the kitchen wall. Every time I see them, they remind me of the price of being easygoing. Sometimes you have to let a few holes show to make sure everyone knows exactly where the walls are. The drywall holes in the kitchen became a sort of monument. Every time I walked past them to grab a coffee, they reminded me that being easygoing isn't the same as being a doormat. But peace with a woman like Carol is never a signed treaty. It's a series of tense ceasefires. The real test came 3 months later during the build-up to my son Leo's 5th birthday. Carol arrived on a Tuesday, unannounced. She didn't have soup this time. She had color-coordinated party supplies. She walked into the kitchen. I'd avoided looking at the patched but unpainted spots where the hooks used to be and began unloading a literal mountain of muted eucalyptus green streamers and beige balloons. "It's a safari theme," she announced, her voice chirpy but guarded. "Very sophisticated. It won't clash with the rug." I looked at the bag of neon blue and bright orange dinosaur plates I'd bought the day before. Leo wanted lava dinos. He'd been talking about it for 6 months. I felt that familiar heat rising in my chest, the "here we go again" sensation that usually preceded a week of passive-aggressive sighs. "Leo wants dinosaurs, Carol. Orange ones, with volcanoes." She paused, a eucalyptus streamer draped over her arm like a dead snake. "Mark, orange is very stimulating. It's been scientifically proven that calmer tones lead to better behavior in groups of children. I thought, for the sake of the afternoon, we could keep things organic." I looked at Dana. She was standing by the sink, frozen. This was the moment. This was the boundary. "No," I said. It was a small word, but it felt heavy. Carol blinked. No, organic safari. We're doing the neon dinosaurs. I'll put your stuff in the guest room for when you want to use it at your house, but the orange stays here." For a second, I thought she was going to crumble. Her lip did that little tremor thing she does when she's losing control. But then, she did something even more Carol-like. She didn't argue. She just pivoted. She spent the rest of the day in the garden, deadheading my roses. I let her. The roses didn't care about their aesthetic, and honestly, they did look better afterward. But the night before the party, I found the real Trojan horse. I went into the garage to get the folding chairs and found a stack of suggested thank you notes she'd already written out for Leo. They were in her perfect, looping cursive. They were beautiful. They were also completely insane because the party hadn't happened yet. She had pre-written his was gratitude for gifts he hadn't received, leaving blanks for the items. I stood there in the cold garage holding these cards, and I realized Carol doesn't just want to move the furniture. She wants to move the future. She wants to curate the memories before they even happen so they fit into her internal gallery of a perfect life. I didn't throw them away. I didn't yell. I just walked back inside, sat down with Dana, and showed them to her. "She's trying to be helpful, Mark," Dana whispered, though she looked exhausted. "Helpful is doing the dishes," I said. "This is script writing. She's writing the script for our kid's life." We had a long talk that night, a real one. No, he said, she said, just about what it feels like to live in a house where you're constantly being corrected by a ghost. Dana admitted that growing up, her bedroom was rearranged every time she went to summer camp. She thought it was a treat. She didn't realize until she met me that it was actually a form of erasure. The party was a disaster in the best way. There was orange frosting everywhere. There was a lava spill on the beige rug that Carol stared at for 45 minutes with the intensity of a bomb technician. She didn't touch it. Yes, she sat in the armchair, my armchair, and she watched the chaos. At one point, I saw her reach out to straighten a stack of napkins that had gone crooked. Her hand hovered an inch above the paper. She looked at me. I was holding a juice box and a screaming toddler. I just raised an eyebrow. She pulled her hand back and tucked it under her leg. It wasn't a total victory. She still leaves organization magazines on our coffee table. She still accidentally buys the correct light bulbs because the ones I like are too yellow. But the house feels like a home again. It's messy, the colors don't match, and the furniture is exactly where I want it to be. Last night, I went to her house to drop off some leftovers. I used the bathroom and noticed the hand soap. It was on the left side, right where I'd put it 3 months ago, or she hadn't moved it back. It was a silent acknowledgement, a recognition of the new world order. I left the soap exactly where it was. I'm not a monster after all. I'm just a guy who likes his fruit bowl on the left. The Lavadino party had been the high-water mark of my resistance, but as December rolled around, I realized I'd only won a tactical skirmish. The real war was about to be fought on the field of holiday tradition. In our house, Christmas is a controlled explosion. We have ornaments the kids made out of dried pasta and glitter. A star for the top of the tree that is technically a repurposed cardboard cutout from a cereal box, and a collection of ceramic reindeer that have all lost at least one ear over the years. It's colorful, it's sentimental, and it's ours. Carol, naturally, had other plans. She started scouting in late November. She'd drop by for coffee and just stare at the corner where we usually put the tree. She wouldn't say anything, but she'd make these little humming noises, the kind a contractor makes when they're looking at a structural beam that's about to snap. "You know, Dana," she said one afternoon while I was in the kitchen brewing a fresh pot, "I saw the most exquisite Nordic-inspired holiday spread in a boutique downtown. All white wood, silver accents, and warm white LEDs, no blue. Apparently, blue light is very jarring for the nervous system during the winter months." I leaned around the corner. "We like the blue lights, Carol. They remind me of the ones my dad used to string up on the porch." She didn't miss a beat. "Nostalgia is powerful, Mark, but so is peace of mind. A monochromatic theme has been shown to reduce cortisol levels during the holiday stress." I didn't argue. I just kept my head down. But the following Saturday, while Dana and I were out getting the groceries and Carol was babysitting, the first box arrived. It wasn't just a box, it was a crate. When we got home, the kids were in the living room looking confused. Carol was standing in the center of the rug, holding a tape measure. "I took the liberty," she said, gesturing to the crate. "It's a 7-foot flocked artificial fur, pre-lit, perfectly symmetrical. No needles on the carpet, no sap on the floorboards, and no character issues." I looked at the crate. Then I looked at my kids. Leo looked like he'd just been told Santa was switching to a kale-only diet. "Carol," I said, my voice dangerously low, "we go to the farm. We pick the tree. We cut it down. That's the tradition." "It's so messy, though, Mark. And the fire hazard? This one is flame retardant. It's practically an investment in safety." Dana stepped forward, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. She loved the Nordic look. She'd pinned 100 photos of it on her boards, but she also loved the chaotic smell of a real pine tree. "Mom, it's a bit much," Dana said. "Maybe we can use your tree in the basement as a second one?" "The basement?" Carol's voice went up a half octave. "To hide it?" No. I thought this could be the primary tree. The one in the window. The one the neighbors see." That was the core of it. The neighbors. The external image. The primary tree had to be perfect because it was a public statement about the state of our family. I didn't let the primary tree out of the crate. I spent the next 3 hours in the backyard building a makeshift stand, and I put Carol's perfect white flocked fur on the back deck. I plugged it in so it glowed out there in the cold, looking like a lonely department store display. Then, I bundled the kids into the car and we went to the farm. We picked the ugliest, most lopsided Douglas fir I have ever seen. It had a bald spot on the left side and a trunk that curved like a question mark. It was perfect. When we brought it inside, the smell of pine hit the room like a physical weight. Carol stood in the kitchen doorway, her hand over her mouth. She didn't say a word as we dragged it in, leaving a trail of needles and and muddy meltwater across her perfectly vacuumed floor. "It's very green," she finally managed to say. "Sir, it's alive," I replied, hoisting it into the stand. The decorating was the real showdown. Carol had brought a bag of glass baubles in shades of champagne and mercury. I reached into the attic and pulled out the box of horrors, the one filled with the pasta stars, the headless reindeer, and a string of multicolored lights that blinked in a rhythm that could probably trigger a seizure. We started hanging things. Maya put a papier-mâché angel on a branch that immediately sagged under the weight. Leo hung 3 dinosaurs by their tails. Carol couldn't help herself. She started adjusting. She'd wait until a kid moved to the other side of the tree, then she'd sneak in, unhook a pasta star, and move it 3 inches to the left to balance the negative space. I watched her for 20 minutes. I didn't say anything. I just waited until eventually she reached for the cereal box star at the top. She had a silver, glittery snowflake in her other hand, ready to swap it out. "Don't," I said. She froze, her arm extended like a statue in a museum. "It's not straight, Mark," she whispered, her eyes pleading. "It's leaning. It looks like it's falling off." "Then it's falling off," I said. "Let it lean. It's our star. Leo made it when he was 3. If it stays on the tree, it's a success. If it's perfect, it's a lie." She slowly lowered her arm. She looked at the silver snowflake in her hand, then back at the cardboard star. For a moment, the tension in the room was so thick, I thought the lights might actually blow. "I just want things to be beautiful for you," she said, and for the first time, I heard the genuine hurt under the control. "I want people to walk in and see that you're doing well, that everything is in order." "Carol," I said, walking over to her. I took the silver snowflake from her hand and hung it on a lower branch, right next to a purple plastic T-Rex. "We are doing well. Look at the kids. They're happy. The house is messy because we're living in it, not because we're failing. You don't have to fix us." She looked at the T-Rex. She looked at the silver snowflake. It looked ridiculous. It looked like a collision between a high-end wedding and a daycare center. She let out a long, shaky breath. "It's very eclectic." "That's the word," I agreed. On Christmas morning, the primary tree stayed in the living room, lopsided and glowing with every color of the rainbow. Carol sat on the floor with the kids, opening presents. Or she didn't try to organize the wrapping paper into a neat pile. She didn't suggest a better way to stack the boxes. When it was time for dinner, she went into the kitchen. I followed her, ready to defend the gravy, but she wasn't touching the food. She was standing by the sink, looking at the hand soap. I'd moved it back to the right side that morning, a small olive branch for the holiday. She looked at me, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. She reached out, picked up the soap, and moved it back to the left. "I think I prefer it here," she said. "It opens up the space." I laughed. I actually laughed. "Fair enough, Carol. Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, Mark. The house still isn't perfect. The holes in the drywall are finally patched and painted. But the color is a shade off because I lost the original paint can and had to wing it." Carol noticed, of course. She pointed it out within 5 minutes of arriving, but she didn't offer to repaint it. She just nodded, acknowledged the imperfection, and went to play Legos with Leo. Sometimes the best way to handle a person who wants to move the world is to show them that the world stays put even when it's messy.